Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I have updates to share about Donald Trump's coup clowns, and these are some of your favorites. This is like Eastman, Giuliani, Mr. Lumpy Pillow Man, a few more. So, first up is news that a DC court has suspended the law license of soon to be ex attorney John Eastman. Eastman, I'm sure you all know, he is known as the architect of the coup plot. He was a California attorney. He was a law professor. So the California State Bar recently recommended that he be stripped of his license to practice law in California. And the matter still needs to go before the California Supreme Court. They're the ones that make the final decision. But even if they agree that, yes, Eastman should be disbarred, he can still appeal. So there's still some road ahead to finalize everything. But in the meantime, the chief judge of the DC Court of Appeals issued an order saying that Eastman's DC license will remain in suspense. Also, the California State Bar judge, which is Yvette Roland, she rejected Eastman's request to allow him to maintain his license as active until the state Supreme Court makes their final decision. Judge Rowland said that Eastman, quote, failed to demonstrate that he no longer represents a threat to the public. So all of Eastman's current clients are going to have to find a new attorney, it seems. And Eastman is going to have to find a new source of income. Maybe he shouldn't have been so defiant, right? He just was totally defiant in his disbarment hearings, and he continued to push this BS excuse that the election was stolen. So he didn't give an inch. I'm thinking that was probably the reason for this. So next is news out of Michigan. Attorney General Dana Nessel, who's the AG in Michigan, she announced that she's filed new charges against Kraken-related attorney Stephanie Lambert Gentilla and also a former county clerk named Stephanie Scott. I'm sure you all remember this as well. Lambert Gentilla has already been charged. She was charged with some crimes that are related to the illegal access of voting equipment in Michigan. And in a press release, the Attorney General is now accusing Lambert Gentilla of illegally transmitting data from an electronic poll book to some sort of unauthorized person. They didn't say who. So the press release says also that Lambert Gentilla did this, quote, under the direction of Scott. So meaning this woman who's now newly charged, Stephanie Scott. Detroit News said that poll books contain personal and identifying information about voters, including their names, their addresses. So this is obviously a serious breach of voter privacy. And Lambert Gentilla's charges now include using a computer to commit a crime, unauthorized access to a computer, and conspiracy to commit unauthorized access to a computer. So the first charge comes with up to 7 years in prison, and then the other two carry a maximum 5 years. Plus, she, as you probably remember, has already been charged with 4 crimes in Oakland County, which are related to all of this. So as for Scott, this new woman that's now been charged, she was charged with 5 felonies and 1 misdemeanor. So it's using a computer to commit a crime, unauthorized access to a computer, conspiracy to commit unauthorized access to a computer, misconduct in office, concealing or withholding a voting machine, and disobeying a lawful instruction or order of the Secretary of State. The most serious of her felonies comes with a max 7-year prison sentence. And Detroit News says that the Scott woman, she was recalled by the voters about a year ago, and she was also prohibited from administering elections because she failed to comply with state voting equipment requirements. They were asking her to not do certain things or do certain things regarding the voting equipment, and she just flat out refused. And she cited, 2020 election issues. She didn't want them resetting the machines and blah, 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 because of potential voter fraud being covered up. So she definitely, based on some of her comments, is an election denier. And she's also found to be posting QAnon BS on her social media accounts. So next is news about Trump's former national security advisor, Mike Flynn. Flynn, as you also probably know, he has not been charged in any cases yet, but he was allegedly involved in discussions about seizing voting machines. Also, he was advising Trump to declare martial law. He wanted to hold new elections. He was involved in the whole coup, the whole fake electors, or at least, talking about the fake elector scheme, from what I understand. So last week, he went on Steve Bannon's show, and Flynn told Bannon, quote, "Steve, a little breaking news here on your show. I received 8, count 'em, 8 subpoenas last night." So these subpoenas are apparently related to Trump somehow. And Flynn told Bannon, quote, "So these people are going to do everything they can, these Marxists, this communist takeover of the United States of America." And speaking of Flynn, his family just lost their defamation lawsuit against CNN. Flynn's brother and sister-in-law had sued the network because CNN ran a segment that showed a video that Flynn posted himself of Flynn and his family members, and they were raising their right hands and they were repeating the QAnon phrase, "Where we go one, we go all." So in this segment, CNN just questioned, hey, it appears that like high profile people are involved in this QAnon movement. So Flynn's brother and sister-in-law sued them, and the judge slapped them down hard. The judge was like, yeah, no. He wrote in his decision, quote, "This case is not a toss-up." The judge said basically, calling someone a QAnon follower is like calling someone a fascist. It's not clearly defined, and it's based on an opinion. He said the QAnon movement is an, quote, "amorphous, undefined concept." I mean, the right calls everyone on the left Antifa, right? It's the same thing. Should we all sue? Anyway, the judge also said, even if QAnon was more clearly defined, the Flynns would still lose their case because, quote, "Number one, the Flynns stood with Michael Flynn, their right hands raised, as he recited the phrase, 'Where we go one, we go all.' And two, the phrase was a QAnon slogan. The Flynns don't fight these facts. On the first part, they haven't challenged the clip's authenticity. As to the second, they say they didn't know that the phrase was a QAnon slogan." So, yeah, when someone tells you, "Raise your hand and repeat after me," you might want to know what the phrase means. You might want to know, why am I doing this? What does this mean? And maybe don't be surprised when people then question if you're part of the QAnon cult. Next is news about America's defendant, Rudy Giuliani. Evidently, alcohol is very expensive. That's the only thing I can come up with, because Giuliani, they've just found out, burned through $120,000 in just January of this year. Now, remember, this is a guy who filed for bankruptcy because he was hit with a $148 million defamation judgment. That was later reduced down to 146, not much. And then after he filed for bankruptcy, the judge agreed, which is insane, but the judge agreed to allow him a $43,000 monthly budget. $43,000 a month in expenses. That is, for most people in this country, their yearly income. This Strunzu can't subsist for 1 month on $43,000. Anyway, so Giuliani's creditors are beyond irritated with all of these games. They filed a complaint with the court, and they said that Giuliani continues, quote, "wasting resources funding and living in two multi-million-dollar residences, proposes extended deadlines for himself in the Chapter 11 case, misses those same extended deadlines, consistently fails to file timely monthly operating reports, and leaves his creditors and this court largely in the dark. So Giuliani filed a response to this, and he says, I would file my reports on time, but I can't because my accountant quit and no one wants the job. So Giuliani wrote in response to the court, or his attorney wrote, quote, unfortunately, the debtor originally had an accountant who was helping. However, he had a change of heart and indicated that he no longer wished to help. Basically, he's saying, like, Giuliani has reached out to a bunch of different accounting firms and CPAs. No one, he wrote, quote, no one seems interested in taking the assignment. Gee, I wonder why. Maybe, could it be because he doesn't pay his bills? So much for the party of personal responsibility, huh? And speaking of not paying your bills and grifting off of MAGA, Mr. Lumpy Pillow Man, Mike Lindell, has finally dropped his lawsuit against the Department of Justice. You might recall they seized his cell phone and he's been trying to get it back. So it looks like he finally got the message. He finally realized he doesn't have a prayer in hell of winning in court. And remember, the seizure of his phone wasn't directly related to Trump's cases. It's, like I said, not directly. It was tangentially related, but it was because of the case against Tina Peters. The FBI seized his device because he supposedly helped Peters after she was charged for allegedly aiding in the illegal breach of voting equipment in Colorado, which she did to help Donald Trump, another election denier. So anyway, I will let you know when I hear more, but yeah, coup clowns are taking it in the shorts. All right. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Please like, please share, and subscribe. Please donate if you can. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.